Welcome to Manhood Modeled, where we study exemplary men from history who embody virtues worth emulating in our own lives. Today, we're examining Marcus Aurelius and the trait of Stoicism. Throughout history, certain men have demonstrated extraordinary stoicism that transcends their time and teaches us valuable lessons for authentic masculinity today. Let's discover what we can learn from Marcus's example and how we can apply this virtue in our own lives. A quote from him: "You have power over your own mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Marcus Aurelius practiced Stoicism not as a philosophical theory, but as a practical wisdom while ruling the Roman Empire during plague, war, and personal tragedy. His private journal, never intended for publication, though if you read it, you might second guess if he had an editor or not, reveals how Stoicism provided tools for maintaining clarity and purpose amid chaos. For modern men navigating uncertainty, information overload, and social pressure, his example demonstrates how controlling our responses rather than external circumstances creates genuine freedom and effectiveness. Here's a key story from Marcus to paint the picture of how this virtue applies. While campaigning on Rome's northern frontier, Marcus wrote reflections that became the famous book Meditations, essentially a personal handbook for maintaining sanity amid chaos. During this period, he faced the Antonine Plague that killed millions, possibly including his co-emperor Lucius Vercius, multiple military threats to the Roman Empire, and the deaths of several children of his own. Rather than being defeated by these circumstances, he developed systematic mental practices to maintain perspective, accept what couldn't be changed, and focus energy on what could be improved. Most remarkable was his ability to maintain humanity and philosophical growth while wielding absolute power, a position that corrupted most who held it. So what are some core lessons that we can learn from Marcus Aurelius? The first one is your morning routine determines your mindset. Now, before you hit exit, don't worry, this isn't another 5-step morning routine to maximize productivity. This is an honest reflection about someone who maintained the integrity and the discipline and consistency of a morning routine that works. Marcus began each day with specific mental exercises, preparing for challenges, writing, "When you wake up, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimism, but rather preparation. The modern application here is to begin your day with a brief mental review of likely challenges and your intended responses to those challenges, rather than being caught off guard. Because the brain is a prediction machine, it pulls what it has responded to in the past and how it's responded, and it projects doing that same thing. We have deep senses of being threatened when we don't know how to respond to a situation. Life is complex, it's full of suffering, and it certainly is unknown. So every day, take time to first sit and just be. Start the day in quiet and stillness. That determines you living out of a grounded place that shows the inner stability amidst the external chaos. By properly interpreting and preparing for how you're going to respond to situations, this prevents the fear of the unknown because you are predicting the future known of a situation. An example here is if you have a big presentation that you have to present at work, or maybe you have a difficult conversation coming up, or you know that you're going to be in back-to-back meetings or handling something that requires extra mental capacity. Imagine the situation happening. Then walk through how you would actually handle it. Step by step, how do you want to feel? What do you want to say? If this happens, how are you going to respond? And you don't want to spend hours and hours doing this, of course, that's not sustainable. But you want to have a general sense of how you're going to show up in this particular situation in a way that reinstills confidence in yourself to handle it appropriately. Everything you need is within you. You just have to connect the ability with the execution. So take time in the morning, think through how your day is going to go, potential barriers or pitfalls or difficult situations you may need to face, and imagine and walk yourself through how you would actually handle it. When you do this, you'll be more at peace, you'll be more stable, and it doesn't mean that the situation's going to turn out how you imagine. A lot of times it doesn't, but the point is that you'll know how to respond, and that's enough. You'll be more effective in response rather than ineffective in reaction. The next lesson is to distinguish between what you can and cannot control. Marcus constantly reminded himself to focus energy only on matters within his control. The modern application here is when faced with a stressful situation, explicitly identify factors you can influence versus those you must accept, then direct your energy exclusively towards the former. I really struggle with this still. I love to try to control situations that are outside of my control. It's an insecurity. It makes me feel more powerful, and it prevents me from trusting the process or being responsible to my own direct influence in the world around me. Something many people often mistaken is that accepting a situation is not enabling it. It's not condoning it. Accepting it is simply coming to terms with the reality of what that situation is. It's meeting life on life's terms. It doesn't mean you have to sign off on that reality you're accepting, but you have to start with that acceptance. And many of us don't want to accept that 98% of our life is outside of our control. We live in a world that's unknown, it's complex, it's nuanced, and it's unpredictable. But if you can decide within yourself what you can control, which is always emotional regulation, thinking through thoughtfully how you're going to respond, controlling your impulses and desires to act out in the moment. These are all things you can practice to control the way you respond in any given circumstance in a moment. So ask yourself, where have I unintentionally become a victim? Where have I given power away that's meant to be kept? I always have the ability to choose in every moment. I may be in the worst circumstance of my life, the one that I wish I was in the least degree ever. I still have a choice on how I respond. My response is not contingent on the outcome. So make a list, draw a line down the middle of the paper, write on the right side, things in my life I can't control, things I can control. Ask yourself where you've given power to the right-hand column and say, how can I regain the control that is within myself? The next lesson is to view obstacles as opportunities for practice. Marcus saw each difficulty as training for developing virtue. He says the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. As Ryan Holiday would say, the obstacle is the way. The modern application here is to reframe your most persistent challenges as your most valuable teachers, specifically designed to strengthen your weakest points. Another negative effect of the victim mindset is thinking you don't have control over a situation, when in fact, not only do you have control, but you can see what is out of your control as a training ground to practice what you can control. We never want difficulties to come upon us. They're painful. They require extra effort and capacity, but we can stop seeing them as threats and start seeing them as opportunities. Now, we don't want to be challenged for challenge's sake, but we want to consistently find things that healthily challenge us to bring out the best in us. This is really how we dignify ourselves as humans. If we don't have challenge, if we don't take risk, then we're not put to the test. Then what is within us isn't drawn out. Now, many people will say, well, I don't like what would be drawn out. I would just fail. I'm weak. I don't want to try. This is a victim mindset. If you have a high sense of self-esteem, you'll realize, of course, I have problems. Of course, I have things I need to get better at. But the deepest parts of me that are true, that are noble, that are wise, have the ability to transcend those shadow parts. And until they're put to the test and given the opportunity to overcome, I'll be nothing more than my failures, the mistakes I made, and the beliefs that I have about myself that are limiting me. So you want to find consistent challenges. Exercise is a great way to do this, but also showing up to conflict. Those are challenging situations that will make you better. And the point is not that you seek out the challenge in and of itself, but you seek it out as the context, as the environment, as the training ground to learn whatever lesson you need to learn. Where the rubber meets the road, that's where the tires are able to move and you're able to make progress. So find healthy challenge. Show up in those spaces empowered to be who you really are. And if that challenge takes you under, as humiliating or embarrassing or as painful that is, be thankful for it because it can teach you a lesson. It can show you your limits and capacities to allow you to refocus on what you can grow in and get better in a way that otherwise wouldn't. If you were coddled, if you were comforted, then you would shy away from the areas of growth and you would just think things aren't so bad. But don't live a life of things aren't so bad. Ask yourself, what could life be if I really put myself to the test in a way that dignified and empowered me to live my authentic self? The next lesson is to remember your mortality, to prioritize properly. Marcus regularly contemplated death, not from morbidity, but to maintain perspective. He says you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you say and think. The modern application here is make decisions by asking, if this were my last year, would this matter? This clarifies what deserves your limited time and energy. In the moment, everything always seems pressing and important. Jim Finley says the non-essential is always imposing itself. The fear, the anxiety, the impulses, the addictions, those are non-essentials. They're always invading our minds saying, do it now, alleviate the pain now, handle this now, me, now, 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 now. Instead, you want to tap into the essential, which never imposes itself. This is love and wisdom and righteousness and goodness. All those things are quietly hanging out in the background, waiting to be expressed. But it takes patience. It takes self-control. It takes discipline to not give in to the immediacy of any given moment. Because you want to ask yourself, is this really worth it? That resentment towards that person, let it go. They're not going to remember. And in 5 years, it's not going to serve you. Working a job where you make a little more, but you're miserable, get out of there. Do something that's going to feel empowering, that you can serve others. That conflict you've been avoiding, face it. That's a relationship you want to keep. You don't want to look back in 20 years and regret not facing it in a way where it could have been reconciled. Ask yourself, what are the things that I'm letting a sense of eternity get a hold of? That might sound like an abstract question because it kind of is, but in short, what do I think I have forever to take care of when in reality, my life is limited? The years are passing by. It doesn't mean we need to rush and get anxious and try to scurry through and pack and max out things as much as possible. We want to live life to the fullest, but in a consistent and calm and controlled manner. But we want to reframe life and every decision based on our mortality. I call it the deathbed exercise. If you were on your deathbed, would you regret doing or not doing that? That is helpful to reframe what you may need to do. Marcus Aurelius lived by the statement, memento mori, remember you will die. Your time will come to an end. How are you living today? Are you living your authentic self? What risks do you need to take? What wrongness do you need to be made right? What adventures do you need to go on to fully live life in a way that you know you don't have forever? The next lesson and last one is act according to nature and role. Marcus assessed actions by asking if they're aligned with human nature and his specific duties. The modern application here is when uncertain about a decision, ask what action would express the best version of myself in this specific role, whether it's being a father, a professional, a friend. There's a type of therapy called acceptance commitment therapy or ACT. And in short, it does the same thing as what Marcus does. It says you as a person are made up of a certain set of values and certain personality types and expressions. Based on those that you know to be true, are your behaviors and decisions reflective of that authentic self based on those values and the personality? Now, you may have aspirational values, things that you want to do, versus lived values, things you actually do. Those are different. You want to draw a line down the center of a page and see the difference between the two. But more so, you want to reflect on how you make a decision. How often is your decision made out of the values that you carry as a person? How often are they not? How often do you not think about it? It's really important to know the role that you play in life and what is required of you. Now, every role, so let's take father, for example, has objective responsibilities. These are things that every single father, if they are healthy and stable, should be carrying out and taking care of consistently. Then you have subjective responsibilities that are unique to who you are as a father. So there are particularities for your makeup and how you may express the role as a father. You want to get a sense of both of those, the objective responsibilities and the subjective ones within the role that you play. You also want to make sure that unless the decision is made out of a true conviction within yourself, don't make it or default to saying no. Too many of us are people pleasers. We want to make sure we keep the peace among other people. We don't want to be disappointed, rejection, kicked out of the tribe. Those are all lies and things that are keeping you from being who you are. You have to set boundaries, be assertive, be confident in your decision making, step up and have a voice. Now, this voice isn't domineering. It doesn't mean it's the only voice in the room, but it has to at least take up the space that it was made to take up because you're the only you in the world. So step into that role as a husband, as a partner, as a friend. Be confident, have thoughts on life, have convictions, express those, and then be open to feedback. Have the humility to see things different if someone presents a more true and noble way of doing it. But nonetheless, your ability to know your calling, your purpose, your lane that you're staying in is vital to the living out of who you are. So what's the practical application we can take away today? To develop Stoic practice in daily life, implement the Stoic pause, a brief moment between stimulus and response where you ask, is this within my control? What virtue is needed here? What would my best self do, the idealized, most manifested self do? This creates space between impulse and action. So what Viktor Frankl says, in between stimulus, whatever that situation is that triggers the desire to have the impulse, and the response, the actual reaction or response that you do, in that gap, therein lies freedom. How free are you as a person? Take the pause because it's going to save you conflict and chaos and aimlessness after. Even if you already know the answer, take the pause. Then you can settle into the answer that you already have. Or in that pause, it'll give you a groundedness to speak out of for the person that you are. You will be more wise. You will be more trustworthy. People will feel more safe around you, and you will provide security within yourself, knowing that you are thoughtful, intentional, and practical about how you express yourself and how you communicate. Going through these questions is going to help you do that. So starting today, identify one recurring frustration in your life, whether that's traffic, a difficult colleague, a work relationship, technology issues, any sort of thing that you have a bit of impatience with, which frustration and patience, by the way, are code words for anger. And practice viewing it deliberately paced in your own path for developing patience, creativity, or another virtue you need to strengthen. If you're stuck in traffic, come to terms with you can't move the cars out of your way. What can you do? You can deep breathe. You can put on a podcast. You can reframe it and say some more time to myself or with whoever you're with in the car. If it's with a difficult colleague, say, because we work on the same team, it's an opportunity for us to understand each other more, to grow in order to strengthen our bond instead of avoid it and judge that person from afar. This will transform your daily irritations that you have and complaints into training opportunities rather than meaningless suffering. Suffering at its core has meaning. It gives us meaning, and by having meaning, it helps us face suffering better. Life is difficult. Do not live in your head, but live out of your heart. Use ration and reason that Stoicism offers to live out of the true intent and spirit, the heart of who you are. So we thank Marcus for his wisdom. Highly recommend reading his book, Meditations. And until next time, guys, this is Manhood Modeled.